please pause the video, do the question, then play the video to check the answer. Let's begin. The table shows the number of tickets sold by 3 groups of volunteers. Group A sold 25% of all the tickets. So I know that 25% of the tickets, I call it letter T, is equals to 40. That means I pause at this point and I find 100%, which is all the tickets. To find 100%, I just have to take 40 times 4. Now, why times 4? Because I know to make 100%, there are 4 groups of 25. Okay, what do I mean? 25 plus 25 plus 25 and plus 25. This is a quicker way rather than you finding 1% and then finding 100%. So I just have to multiply 4 times, and that gives me the answer of 160. So I know there are 160 tickets all together. So my next step, I need to find out in group C how many tickets were there. So 160 minus 40 minus 88, I get my answer as 32. But that's not my final answer, because the question wants percentage of the tickets did group C sell. So to find the percentage, I need to take 32 out of total number of tickets, which is 160. Then to find percentage, multiply by 100. And let's do the simplification. First, I can cancel the hundreds by simplifying, divide by 10, and then now 32 and 16, I can cancel, because I know in 32 there are 2 sets of 16. So 2 on top and 1 at the bottom. So 2 out of 1 is 2. 2 times 10, my answer will be 20. So my final answer, 20%. Which one of the following is closest to the volume of water shown? So let's take a look. The key word here in this question is the word closest. So before we find out, we need to find out the intervals. Let's take a look at this portion. We know that 100 milliliters is equals to 4 intervals. 1, 2, 3, 4. So my first step to find out the increment of each interval, I will take 100 divided by 4 and I'll get 25. Okay, so that means every time when it jumps by 1, it increases by 25 ml. And then it goes to 50, 75, and then 100. So the same goes to the top, which means at this point, right here, it is actually 325, 350 ml. And then now the next level will be 375 ml. So my answer is right smack between these two. So if you look at the options, 330 is definitely out. 350, well, it's in between. So it is close, but not closest. Then that leaves us with the last two options. 380 is definitely out, because the highest the level, which is 375, is not the maximum of 380. It's not close, so it's out. And 360, it fits right in the middle. And that's the answer, number 3. If 15% of a number is 12, what is 1/4 of the number? So first thing, I would write 15% of total is equals to 12. Now at this point, beware, because if you really want to work with friendly numbers. What do I mean by friendly numbers? Let's see what you will encounter. Most of my students will change it to 1%. And then they will encounter this. 12 divided by 15. Such a small number divided by a larger number. Then they start to panic, or they might even change it to fraction. Well, if you're good with fraction, you will still manage to find 100% by taking 12, 15 out of 100. And then you simplify, and ultimately you will get the answer. If you are stuck listening to this and you do not know what I'm trying to say, I have an easier alternative. Okay, So what do? Let's come back again. 15% of the total is equals to 12. So change it to friendly numbers. First of all, I want to change it to 5, a multiple of a factor of 15, sorry. So by doing so, I need to divide by 3. So the same thing, I will divide 3 for the other side, and I'll get 4. Now 5, I need to find 100% of the number. So 100% of that number would be, what do I have to multiply? I have to multiply by 20. Again, the numbers are pretty easy to multiply because 4 times 20, you get 80. Now I've gotten my answer, and I can go straight to the question and answer this part of the question. What is 1/4 of the number? So 1/4 of the number that I found, which is 80. And here, this part, easy. I just have to cancel. When I say cancel, I mean by simplifying. So divided by 4, I get 1. Divided by 4, I get 20. 1 times 20, answer 20. So the answer will be 20. John watched a movie which lasted 1 3/4 hour. The movie ended at 1:30 a.m. What time did it start? You have learned this chapter or concept about time in P3 and P4. So firstly, you need to know 1 hour and 3/4 is equals to how many minutes? Well, if you're able to visualize the clock by quarters, you should be able to do this quickly. But if you can't, then follow me by changing it to minutes. The answer will be 1 hour and 45 minutes. And then how did I get this 45 minutes? This is a recap to help you. So 3/4 hour, remember in 1 hour there are 60 minutes. So you need to take the fraction, whatever fractions that's given, multiply by 60. And you simplify 4 and 60, divide by 4, 60 divided by 4, you get 15. So 3 times 15, answer is 45. That's how I get my 45 minutes. So the movie ended at 1:30 a.m. I need to draw my timeline. And the end of my timeline is 1:30 a.m. So now, let me backtrack by moving 1 hour. And in 1 hour, I will have 12:30 a.m. Okay, bearing in mind this is midnight now. Because if I've moved and not 30 minutes or more backwards, it will be p.m., nighttime. So now, let me move 30 minutes back first, okay, which I will have 12 a.m., okay, midnight. Now, I have moved 30 minutes, which gives me a balance of 15 minutes that I have to move back. So I'm going to move back 15 minutes. From 12 a.m., if I move back 15 minutes, I will get 11:45 p.m. nighttime. And don't be quick to choose option 1, because this answer 11.45 is not equivalent to 11:45 hour, because the time in the options given, they are in 24-hour clock. So you need to change this to 24-hour clock. Well, one way to do so, you just have to add 12 to it. Okay, because 24-hour clocks, you're adding 12 to any number that's given. So here we will have is 23:45 hours. Okay, and that's my answer, option number 2. This is a pretty easy question. The figure is made up of a rectangle and a triangle. Can you see the rectangle? And can you see the triangle? Now they are just asking you the value of angle A, B, C, D, and E, which is sum of all angles. And you know the sum of an angles in a rectangle is 360 degrees, and the sum of all angles in a triangle is 180 degrees. So to find all the angles, you just have to add them up. You get 540 degrees. And number 3 is the answer. That's it. How many 8s are there in 5 1/4? First thing that you need to know is this word, 8. what do they actually want? They just want to find out how many 8s. Now, is it clearer when I write the fraction on top? So the step 1, you have to change the fraction to the denominator 8. So we have 5 and 1/4. We'll change it to 5. And how do I get 8? I have to multiply by 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. Step number 2, we have to change the fraction to improper fraction. So 5 to 8. How do I change it to improper fraction? First of all, I need to take 5 times 8, which I will get 40. Then 40 plus 2, 42 out of 8. So now go back to the question. How many 8s? I'm finding the number that's on the top. This is 1 8. So over here, my answer is 42 8s. So the final answer is 48. That's it. Mr. Ang started driving from 10:30 to 14:15 on the same day. How long did he drive? So this is another question on time, and it's in 24-hour clock. So I will start with my timeline, and the time is 10:30. So since this is in 24-hour clock, be careful. It's in the morning, so I go by hour. 1 hour later, it'll be 11:30. And then I can still extend by 1 more hour. I get 12:30. And then 1 more hour, I get 13:30. Now be careful, because if I move on to the next 1 hour, I will reach 14:30. Well, some of you are familiar with this. Let me demonstrate. Some of you will move on to 14:30, and then you subtract the 15. Well, that is one way. But for some of us who may get confused easily, this way is not recommended. So what do we do? So from 13:30, I will move on to the next hour, which is 1400. So how do I go to 1400? I will add 30 minutes to it. Now remember, the ending time is 14:15. So how do I derive at 14:15? I have to add 15 minutes more, which I'll get 14:15. Now they are asking for the duration that he has driven. So let us add them up. 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hours. I have 3 hours. 30 minutes plus 15 minutes is 45 minutes. And that's my answer. 5/12 of the marbles in a box are blue. First of all, you need to know how to read this fraction. The denominator 12 means the total number of units, and happen to be 5 units of the 12 units of the marbles in the box are blue. So if you use model method, you would draw 12 boxes, which is quite tedious. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, let me add one more. So I have 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yep. And I know 5 units of them. 2, 4, 5. They are blue. Now next keyword. Half of the marbles are red. Half of the total marbles, which is 12 units here. So half of 12 is 6 units. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They are red. So let's go back to blue again. I have 5 units. And red, I have 6 units. Now they tell us there are 150 more red marbles and blue marbles. So if you compare 5 units and 6 units, the difference is 1 unit. And the difference happened to be 150 marbles. The next statement, the rest of the marbles are yellow, which happen to be just 1 unit. What is the total number of marbles in the box? So total, there are 12 units. And I already know that 1 unit is equals to 150. My last step would be 150 times 12. So this question is simple, but bear in mind you have to know how to multiply by 2 numbers, since this is a paper 1 question. You have to do it without the use of calculator. So the answer is 1800. Okay, if you find that drawing model is tedious, there is another way. So let me go through the second way. 5/12 of the marbles in the box are blue, and just now, like what I've mentioned, 12 units is the total, so I'm going to use branching. 12 units, so 5 units are blue, So 5 units here, and I'm going to write blue here. So since I know 5 units is already there, this is something like number bond. I'll be left with 7 units for the rest of the colors. And the next keyword, half of the marbles are red. So you look at half of the total marbles, which is 12 units. So you know that 6 units out of the 7 units must be red. And the same thing, you will go into comparison of red and blue. Then you know that 1 unit is equals to 150. Then the last step, the rest of the marbles are yellow, and you know that this 1 unit is yellow. Then the last step, total number of marbles in the box. The rest of the steps is the same. So you're finding this 12 units here, which is 150 times 12. You would derive with the same answer, 1,800. So this is using bunching, while the previous method uses model drawing. At a school concert, 20% of the audience were adults. If I have 20% of everyone were adults, that means I would have 80% left. Am I right? But now, the most important phrase in this entire question is 25% of the remainders were boys. So remember, just now we talked about the remainder percentage is 80%. So what does it mean 25% of 80%? It seems very confusing. So I would recommend you to change this percentage into fraction. So which means 25% of 80%. It seems daunting if you read this. So if I would change it to, I know 25%, it's actually 1/4. Okay? And then of is multiplication, and then 80%. Now this seems much easier because I can simplify it, divided by 4, and then divided by 4, I will get 20. That means 20% were boys as well. Now that leaves us with how many percent for girls, since they say the rest were girls. So I'll take 100, subtract 20, and subtract 20, which is 40. I will get 60, which means 60% girls. At this point in time, everything else is much easier, because the next step, they tell us there were 480 girls, which means that 60% is equals to 480. And they are just asking us how many adults were there at the concert. So adults, 20%. I just need to find 20%. So I know that 60 divided by 3, I get 20. So on the other end, I will just divide by 3 as well. So 480 divided by 3, no calculators allowed. So you have to do the arithmetic by the side. I will get my answer as 160. There are a total of 160 adults. Now you're wondering, how can I do it if I do not know how to, change the percentage fast? Well, you can first of all change it to 10%. So from 60%, change it to 10% by dividing 480 divided by 6, which I will get 70. No, 80. It's very messy. At a school concert, 20% of the audience, they were adults. So if there are 20% adults, the remaining percentage would be 80. Okay, bear that in mind. Now the next part of the sentence, which is the most important part, is this. 25% of the remainder. Remember, what's the remainder percentage we have found out just now? 80%. Now, at this point in time, if you find this phrase very daunting, 25% of 80%, I would encourage you to change this 25% into a fraction. So how do I do that? Remember, percentage is out of 100. So you have 25 out of 100. You can straight away multiply it by 80, or if you want it to be easier, you can simplify it by dividing by 25. You get 1/4 times 80. Now the number is much smaller, so divide and you get 20. That means there are also 20% of boys. And they say the rest were girls. So how many girls are there? Remember, total 100. So if I do a mental calculation, 100 minus 40, I will get 60% of girls. Okay? And now they're giving us a big clue, which says that there are 480 girls. Which means at this point in time, I can link this 60% is equals to 480. And they are asking us how many adults were there at the concert. I am finding 20%. So there are two ways of doing it. First of all, you can find 10%, then you multiply by 2, or you divide by 3 straight away. Because I know 60 divided by 3, I get 20%. So on the other side, on the right hand side, I'm going to do the same. 480 divided by 3, I get 160. Now another way, if you can't, remember just now I talked about, you can change it to 10% first. Okay, let me use another color so it's not so confusing. So you find 10% first. How do I find 10%? I'll take 480 divided by 6 to find 10%, which I'll get 80. Then next step, I just go and find 20%, which is 80 times 2. And same thing, I will get back my 160. That's it. Some girls shared 140 friendship bands. The eldest girl received 4 friendship bands more, while the rest received only 8 friendship bands. How many girls in total shared the friendship bands altogether? So we know that everyone received 8, but there's one person who received 4 more. So how many did the eldest girl received in all? I can find that out by taking 4 plus 8, which is equals to 12. Now, since she's the odd one out, I will remove her from the total. So 140 minus 12, and I will get 128. This 128 is then shared by distributing each person receiving 8. So my next step, I'm going to find out how many girls received 8 friendship bands each. So 128 divided by 8, I will get 16. Now this 16 represents girls who received 8 friendship bands. There are 16 of them. Now the question asks how many girls in all. Girls include the eldest girl that received 12 and also the girls that received 8. So my final step is taking 16 of the girls who received 8 friendship bands plus that one girl who received an additional of 4. My total answer will be 17. That's it.